Art. Depending on who you ask, the definition of this word may and will vary. But for me, this ambiguous term means the accurate communication of emotion. If something is able to effectively convey or invoke the intended emotion on any level, then it can be considered art. That being said, at the heart of any good piece of art is a story. If you hear any connoisseur talk about a critically acclaimed painting or song, they talk about the story told with each stroke of the brush or note played, and the emotion that they feel because of it. So that should give you some insight as to why I'm so obsessed with stories and storytelling, these being the cornerstones of any good work of art. And as much as I enjoy and partake in these things, rarely do they ever actually derive a physical emotional response. My mind reacts to them all the time, but my body never does. The most physical reaction I have is by getting goosebumps if it's extraordinarily well done, and even that's rare. So, imagine my surprise when sitting in my room watching A Silent Voice for the first time on my phone. I felt the warm trail of a tear run down my cheek as the scene before me played out. One thought ran through my mind. This is art. A Silent Voice, or The Shape of Voice, flew under my radar when it first came out, being as I didn't watch many anime movies back then, and Your Name came out around the same time, completely overshadowing it for a lot of people, including me. While Your Name is definitely good, and I honestly don't believe its praise is unwarranted, its grand, fantastical scale and interesting mystery is put to shame by a simple story about people. No mystery, no supernatural hook, just people. Incredibly real people. If you ask me what, in my opinion, the most important part of any story is, I wouldn't hesitate to say that it's the characters. You can have the most interesting and expansive world and plot, but if I find the characters bland or poorly written, it may not hold my attention for too long. On the other end of the spectrum, if you have a dumb or uninspired story and world, but well-written or fun characters, then I'm hooked. Take Hensky, for example. The plot is dumb, and most similar shows make me want to scream, but because I enjoyed the characters so much, the plot didn't matter. A Silent Voice's plot isn't lacking by any means, but it being an extremely character-driven film puts all the weight on its cast. A cast that takes the weight and effortlessly throws it onto the viewer's chest. The immense detail and effort put into each of these characters from the first frame they're introduced is very evident. From small design choices such as a tag sticking out on the back of our protagonist's shirt giving some insight into how he's always put it on, to the frown lines of a bitter single mother who doesn't understand why her daughter that she loves so had to be born deaf, and the smile of the grandmother who's trying to make up for said bitterness with positivity and love for her grandchildren's sake. You don't have to be told any of these things through exposition or monologue. In fact, you aren't told any of these things. You are shown these things. Via the characters' actions, their designs, their emotions, you feel and see it all. Show, don't tell is a very common phrase used in the filmmaking community or writing community in general. It's used because instead of telling the viewer how they should feel about these situations, you begin to show the viewer how these characters feel, and if the characters are written well enough, the viewer will begin to feel along with them. And it's something anime rarely ever does. It's risky. If not executed properly, the audience may miss the intended message or might even misinterpret the message entirely. It's the artist handing control over to the art, and in turn, leaving it up to the viewer to interpret what the art is trying to say. Which, as I said earlier, art is the communication of emotion, and those things are fickle. I want to say that it's ironic how the movie about a deaf girl focuses so much on showing rather than telling, but it's by design. It's the perfect translator for these emotions to be communicated. Someone who literally can't hear how people say they feel and has to come to those conclusions by trying to understand the people themselves rather than just understanding their words. Someone who's stuck inside their own head and can't hear when others try to express their love for them. Someone who sees themselves as a person that doesn't deserve happiness and a burden to the ones they love because they are hyper aware of other sadness and misinterpret sadness for them as sadness because of them. And all of that is contrasted with someone who doesn't think they deserve happiness because they are as unaware of the sadness and pain their actions cause as they are about the tag sticking out on the back of their shirt until it's too late. One character starting the first arc trying to jump and the other starting the final trying to jump, each being saved by the other. Shoya decides not to jump because of the chance at redemption and friendship that Shoko gave him. Maybe he can be redeemed for how he treated her if he can just make her happy, which all leads up to the scene mentioned in the title of this video. Each action taken by each of the characters in this film up to this point flows seamlessly together with the music, the framing, the pacing, the sound design, the color, all of it to create a mix of emotions no film has ever brought out of me.
Hey, wait a second. What is she doing? Hey, Shoko? Shoko? Don't do it! Please, no. Shoko!
The sadness, because you understand why she feels like she has to do this. The panic, stress, and uncertainty as Shoya struggles so desperately to save her. Her being his one chance at redemption. But then, him calling out her name, even though she can't hear him, shows that there's more. She's more than just that deaf girl he bullied. She's a person that he has come to care about, not just for selfish reasons like redemption, but also because he genuinely cares for her and her well-being. His voice yelling to her deaf ears, signifying that she's more to him than just a chance at redemption or someone he pities. His silent voice proving them both wrong about themselves. And I believe her seeing all of this when she looks him in the eye and he looks back, which is something he has trouble doing, is what makes her decide to climb back up. And after everything, it's what makes him look up and see the people around him for the first time. Everything I've said here is based on my subjective views of art and storytelling, and my appreciation for the story comes from personal experiences with a lot of the internal struggles of these characters, which are represented very well. So this film may not have meant to you what it meant to me, but it meant a lot to me, and many others. So thank you, Oima Yoshitoki, for writing this incredible story, and thank you, Kyoto Animations, for bringing it to life in more ways than one.